Once upon a time in a small town, there was a quirky little library that everyone loved to visit. The librarian, Mrs. Granger, was known for her peculiar sense of humor. She loved to play pranks on unsuspecting patrons and often came up with witty remarks that would leave people chuckling long after they left the building. One day, a young man named John walked into the library looking for a book on paranoia. He had recently started experiencing strange occurrences and wanted to understand what was going on in his head. As he approached the reference desk, Mrs. Granger looked up from her book and asked, "Can I help you find something?" John hesitated for a moment before replying, "Yes, actually. I'm looking for a book on paranoia." Mrs. Granger raised an eyebrow and whispered, "They're right behind you, nonfiction." John turned around, startled, only to see that there was nobody there. He looked back at Mrs. Granger, who was trying hard not to laugh. Thanks," he said, feeling embarrassed. Mrs. Granger chuckled softly and pointed towards the psychology section. "You'll find it over there." John thanked her and made his way to the designated area. As he browsed through the shelves, he couldn't help but think about Mrs. Granger's joke. It was so unexpected that it caught him off guard, and yet it also put him at ease. Maybe his paranoia wasn't as bad as he thought after all. After finding a suitable book, John checked it out and headed home. As he read through the pages, he began to understand that everyone experiences moments of paranoia from time to time. It was comforting to know that he wasn't alone in his thoughts. The next day, John returned to the library to return the borrowed book. Upon entering, he saw Mrs. Granger at the reference desk again. "Good morning," she greeted him with a warm smile. "Good morning," John replied shyly. "I found the book you recommended." Mrs. Granger beamed proudly. "I'm glad to hear that. Did it help?" John nodded. "It did. I realized that we all have our moments of paranoia, and there's no need to worry too much about it." Mrs. Granger nodded in agreement. "Exactly," she exclaimed. "Now that you understand that, maybe you won't be so paranoid anymore." John laughed at her joke, feeling grateful for the wisdom she had shared with him. As he walked out of the library, he couldn't help but think about how much he enjoyed the little pranks and witty remarks Mrs. Granger would come up with. It was then that John realized maybe he wasn't the only one who needed a dose of humor to lighten the load. And so, with renewed purpose, he decided to start his own collection of jokes and stories, all inspired by the quirky little library and its beloved librarian who knew how to bring laughter into even the most serious situations. Over the years, John's collection grew, and he soon discovered that his humor resonated with many others. Eventually, his work became so popular that it caught the attention of a publisher, who offered him a book deal. Excited about the opportunity, John agreed, and his first book was published under the title Librarian Humor. The book became an instant bestseller, and people everywhere fell in love with the heartwarming stories and hilarious jokes inspired by Mrs. Granger's wit and wisdom. The little library that started it all soon became a landmark in the town, and visitors from far and wide came to experience the magic of its unique atmosphere. Mrs. Granger, now retired, would often visit the library, reminiscing about the good old days. She took great pride in knowing that her sense of humor had inspired others to find joy and laughter in their own lives. And so, the legacy of Mrs. Granger's wit lived on through John's collection, proving that sometimes even the smallest act of kindness or humor can have a ripple effect that touches countless hearts.